All right, you all. So tariffs are here. April 2nd was Liberation Day, and America has implemented tariffs on different countries that we trade with. What impact does that hold on wholesaling real estate and real estate investing, real estate as a whole? What are my thoughts? Are there any things that I'm going to do differently? And what changes do I see happening? Now, if you all have your political views, please let me know down below. I don't really sway either way. I just look at the economics and I look at numbers and how businesses work. And I do follow the stock market. And the stock market was bleeding red today because of these policies or these executive orders, whatever they are. But tariffs are here. So number one, how does this impact real estate investing? Let me give you all a story. So I was looking at a new construction 4-unit property just to invest in, to rent out, possibly house hack, live in 1 unit, rent out the other 3 units. This was a new construction. And so I looked at the price, looked at everything, and I called up the realtor. I was all like, okay, asked different questions about the property, the completion date of the new construction, and I asked, is there any flexibility with price? The realtor told me, because of the higher construction costs due to tariffs, there's no flexibility with price. Now, you already are going to start seeing more and more of this as time goes on, right? And so realtors are already using this as an excuse not to lower price, or sellers are using that as an excuse not to lower price because it does impact them. But if you actually read the policy or the different implementations of tariffs, it doesn't include framing. And framing is probably one of the most important and expensive part of new construction. But there are other components that do play a role in the cost of construction that are going to be under these new tariffs rules. But anyways, I just wanted to show you all that you already start to see these impacts happening in the real estate world. Now, as a wholesaler, let's say you're working with a cash buyer. Cash buyers are flipping a property, right? A lot of their materials they buy from Home Depot, from Lowe's. A lot of those materials Lowe's and Home Depot get from China, right? They get them from other countries. And because a lot of these different materials are going to be more expensive. And so Lowe's they're going to charge more. Home Depot is going to charge more. And then the cash buyer, the investor, they're paying more. And so they're going to charge more in order for them to make a profit on that property. And just looking at the different things that are excluded from tariffs, a lot of flips, you don't use a ton of framing unless you're really changing the orientation of the house or doing an add-on or adding rooms or changing where the kitchen is. Like I did a big renovation last year and I hardly spent any money on framing. Yes, I did buy some lumber and things of that nature, but most of my costs were other things: flooring, cabinets, the countertops, stainless steel appliances, paint, some drywall, nails. So all of these components play a role that are still going to be charged extra because of tariffs. And so you may run into that as a wholesaler. Cash buyer saying, hey, I really need to get it at a really good deal because of construction costs. But the other thing is that sellers may not understand these new rules. And so they're still, really high on their price. And plus, a lot of sellers are still holding on to their properties because interest rates are still high and home prices are not dropping a ton still. And so with all of these things happening, a lot of beginner wholesalers may struggle finding that very first wholesale deal because of all of these new changes happening in the economy. And a lot of economists are predicting that we are heading into stagflation when we don't really grow as a economy, but at the same time, everything stays high and inflation is still rising. And so we'll just see what happens. Another thing about real estate that gets impacted is indirectly is mortgage rates. So because tariffs are, they cause more inflation. When you have higher inflation, sometimes, a lot of times the Fed wants to lower inflation, right? They've been trying to battle inflation for the past 2-3 years. And so they're trying to get to that magical number of 2%. And we're close, but we're not there yet. But now that tariffs are being implemented, inflation usually goes up. And so with that, what is the Fed going to do? Are they going to lower interest rates, which has an indirect impact on mortgage rates? And so if mortgage rates go down, that's going to cause home prices to go even higher. But if they leave it the same way it is, the stock market is going to keep on falling. And at the same time, people are not going to be able to afford things, because who's going to afford a home when it's expensive and the financing is expensive? And so whether the Fed is okay with going into a recession or some variation of a recession, it all depends upon that. But I just think it's super interesting how all these things can play a role and impact different industries of real estate investing, including wholesaling. And I don't think a lot of beginner wholesalers understand the impact of what's happening with these tariffs. But another thing is that I follow the stock market, and it's all red. It's all red today, and you see all these things happening. But is this the bottom? A lot of people are predicting, prices are going to go back up. Yes, eventually they go back up, but this year may just be a slow year, just like 2022. It wasn't like, boom, it happened, and then we bottomed and went back up. 2022 was like kind of drawn out. And so 2025 may be that year. And just to be frank with you, or just to paint the picture for you all, recessions used to be cyclical, so cyclical that we could kind of predict it a little bit better. But now we're having like slowdowns every 2-3 years, right? As before, it used to be like every 7 to 10 years. I believe Ray Dalio has this book, and he talks about the cyclical nature of the stock market, of the economy. But I think because of media and people are more knowledgeable of what's happening, people are quick to react, right? And so you saw that with the pandemic. People were quick to react on the drawdown. People were quick to invest their money right away, right? It didn't take 5 years to come back to normal levels like it did in 08, 07, right? It took probably a year. And the stock market was back to its normal levels, or almost back to their normal levels. And so you're going to see that happen more and more. And then we're having a slowdown now this year. And so usually we would wait another 6-7 years to have a slowdown, but it was back in 2022 we had another slowdown, right? And so it was 2 years after 2020, and now we're 2025 and we have another slowdown. That we may see another over 20% drop in the stock market, right? So we've been having these mini recessions every 2 to 3 years, in 2020, 2022, and possibly now in 2025. And so it's just different. I'm just wanting to paint you all this big picture that it's going to be way more volatile going forward. And so whether you're investing in real estate or holding properties or flipping, you have to understand these impacts on the economy. One thing that I would say, though, about real estate is that real estate seems like one of the strongest assets that you can hold, because you see so much volatility in the stock market, in other investments in businesses, and YouTube channels and things of that nature. But like real estate, people are not going to be able to buy homes, so they have to rent. I just don't think the value of homes are going to drop 20% anytime soon, right? It's not, I don't see, unless a war is happening, I don't see real estate dropping like it dropped, like the same rate it drops in the stock market, right? Or back in '08, '07. So we'll see. But if you're a wholesaler, wholesaling real estate, I think, what I would do, this is my personal opinion, I would just be ready for those type of comments about people talking about tariffs. Be ready for sellers not budging on their prices, and buyers wanting better prices on their properties. And so to navigate that, either work for a wholesaling company and understand what they're doing. You have to really look for off-market properties. Look for those properties that not everyone has access to. You have to really make sure you know how to get tax lien properties, water shutoff list, driving for dollar list, because those are super unique lists that not a lot of wholesalers actually have access to or try to get. And so tariffs are super interesting. I just like listening and reading about the economy as a whole. And I know on this channel, I mostly talk about real estate investing and wholesaling. But I've been trying to invest a little bit more into the stock market. Not doing well at all, just to be frank with you all. But I am learning, okay, these days are going to be, big days. And so I knew yesterday, hey, tomorrow it's going to drop a lot or it's going to go up a lot because of these tariffs that are going to be implemented. And so there are different things you can do with stocks or option trading. I'm getting a little sidetracked, but I just want to talk about, there's something, it's options. I hate to call it kind of like betting, but it's super similar to it. But you're kind of investing in whether the stock is going to go higher or lower, right? And you can make a good amount of money if you're right in which direction the stock will go. And so, but one thing that you can do is you can bet on both sides. It's called a straddle. So yesterday was probably one of the best times to do it, because a lot of people knew there was going to be like big ups and downs. And usually when there's big ups and downs, that's when those type of investments work. So straddle, for example, the S&P 500, SPX, they trade around, right now it's around 5,400. And if you get a swing of about 80 or more, a straddle makes sense, or 100, especially 100 is that sweet spot. And the S&P dropped 274 points. So let's say you put 5,000 in thinking the stock market is going to go up, and 5,000 thinking that the stock market is going to go down. Because of this big swing, yes, you lose that $5,000 thinking that's going to go up, but that 5,000 that you bet it on the stock market going down, that most likely 4x today. All right, so yeah, you put in 10,000, one side made 20,000 and you lost 5,000, right? So you made 15 grand. So that's a little bit of stock option investing, but it's just hard to predict those days. But yesterday was the perfect day because of this thing happening. Like, it was a no-brainer to make that type of investment, in my opinion. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I just wanted to talk about tariffs. I'm interested in this topic and wanted to learn a little bit more about it and how it impacts wholesaling and real estate in general. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and I'll talk to you all later.